Welcome to episode 3 of the Living the Rafa Lifestyle podcast. This is your girl, Karen Lewis Matthews, bringing you another liberating discussion with an inspirational guest. Thank you for tuning in from across the globe, whether you're at home, work, or even in transit. I'm excited and grateful for you all. Today, I'll be talking to the beautiful Sashana Josephs-Pike, who has experienced both loss and increase, fruitlessness and fruitfulness. Like many women, Sashana struggled with one of the most devastating losses that a woman can experience. That's the loss of a miscarriage. However, she has also experienced a supernatural healing and fruitfulness at the hand of Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. But before we jump into Sashana's testimony, let me properly introduce her to you, the listeners. Sashana Josephs-Pike is a child of the King, a wife to her lovely husband and a mother of 2 amazing boys, her miracle and her promise. She is a member of WAFIF, that is Worship and Faith International Fellowship, where she serves in the praise and worship ministry. Sashana is also a part of the EWAC, that is Every Woman a Contender program, where she strives to accomplish her goals, conquer significant challenges, and vanquish the adversary while walking with God. Founder and CEO of Expressions on Paper and G-Wiz Scoops and more, Sashana is an astute entrepreneur who is also a very talented certified makeup artist. She enjoys home decorating and has a keen eye for colors. Sashana greatly loves the performing arts, and she can be found singing and dancing with every opportunity she gets. Sashana has earned a diploma in the Social Service Worker program at George Brown College in Toronto, Canada, a certificate and an associate degree in social work from the University of the West Indies, and she's also continuing her education with that university by pursuing a bachelor's degree in social work. Sashana's love, enthusiasm, and understanding of God, as well as her love for people, have drawn her to this area of study. Tending to social concerns and assisting people in making their own way through life is the one thing that she would do for the rest of her life without hesitation. Sashana has been invited to several platforms to empower women and give them a voice. Her areas of focus include healthy marriages, miscarriages, and teaching new moms to navigate parenting. Welcome, Sashana, and thank you for sharing with me and our listeners today.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me here today.
This is such a pleasure for me because, as you know, the subject of miscarriage or even infertility, they're often treated as a taboo. And I remember when I experienced my first miscarriage, it was the most shocking and loneliest experience of my life. I'd never gone through anything quite like that before. And the trauma, it took me by complete surprise. And what was even more distressful is that I felt like there was nobody I could talk to who could relate to what had happened to me. But then one day after I returned to Jamaica, a friend of mine, she sent me this flyer to an Instagram live discussion that you and your husband were going to be guest speakers on. And,
Yes, I remember.
after hesitating a lot, I decided to join the live discussion, and I'm absolutely happy that I did, because finally I felt like, yes, there is someone out there
Someone else
who understands exactly how I feel, and so I thought that I would do that for someone else today. Someone who might be going through all the confusion, the sickness, the hurt, everything that I was feeling in that moment, and needed to know that there's someone who can relate, so I thank you today again for joining us, and I invite you to share your inspirational story. Go ahead and talk to us about what life was like before marriage, your hopes, your dreams, all of that.
Thank you so much again for having me, Karen. Thank you so much. It is indeed a pleasure. Um, so, I mean, for me, it was always my dream to be married. Unfortunately, my parents, their marriage didn't last. And so one of the things I've always had at the back of my mind is that when I get married, I need to do everything to make it right. And it wasn't a matter of trying to be better than them or have it in the books more or have more knowledge of them, but it was really just trying to commit myself to God and really, really wanting my marriage to work for the sake of my kids. I never would have thought that having children would have been a challenge. Uh, never, it would have thought that. I mean, even getting married, I thought that it wouldn't happen for me because the truth is I was from a dysfunctional family. And so growing up, because I've had so many different issues with myself personally and growing up and, having to move different places and live, I thought I was damaged too. I never thought that, anybody would have wanted to get close enough to me to get married. But that was a dream that the Lord made happen for me in a time that, in a season that I wasn't even expecting it. I wasn't expecting it, was not expecting it. Sitting in my office and this male version of myself appeared and we just knock it off right there and then. I was like, we both said it at the same time. I've never ever seen a male version of myself, while he was saying, I've never seen a female version of myself. And we became really good friends. I mean, I had just left a relationship months before. And so the focus was really on me, building myself and building character and really pressing into God more to know more and to leave all the baggage that I had, through my family dysfunctional relationships and just the past, just leaving everything behind, but not just dropping it, but to be healed from it, so that when I move on to relationship and marriage, I would not have to deal with so much. Because, I don't think it fully leaves you, but to be able to function, and so it was a journey and a half. It really was. We became friends. My focus was really building me. And so we never really talk about our feelings. It was always gray areas for us. Gray area. Once we said gray area, we knew exactly what that meant. But when the time had passed, I said, we had the conversation and we wanted to get married. I knew we wanted to pursue something more. We never called boyfriend and girlfriend. We were adults. And so I would say my significant other, right? We talked about children. We talked about wanting a daughter and a son. We even had their names.
Wow.
In 2012. We had their names, Jonathan, Josiah Anthony Pike, and Naomi Faith Abigail Pike. We had the children's name. And so by the end of December 2013, because we would have set our date to get married in 2014, February the 8th. I've always had issues with my cycles from a young girl, always, because I started my cycle when I was as young as 10 years old. I was only in grade 5 when it started. But that's early. But I was always in pain, a lot of pain. I've always had heavy bleeding. It was just a whole lot. And I did not understand it. I thought it was normal. You know what? As I'm speaking now, you know what I just remembered, what the Lord brought back to my memory? When I was about 15 years old, I had a dream. And in that dream, I remember getting up and screaming out and praying and because I've been saved from I was 10 years old. And so I knew what it meant to pray. I knew the power of the word and the power of prayer. And I got up praying. But what scared me about that dream, I woke up in tears. The enemy came to me and said, I was trying to save my mom in the dream. And the enemy came to me. He touched my stomach. My God. Ooh, as I'm talking to you, I feel like I'm reliving that moment. Wow. He touched my stomach and it's almost like I flashed his hand off or something, and he said that he laughed or chuckled and said, I planted something inside of you, and when it's the appointed time, you're going to give birth to it. Never knew what that meant, but I prayed and cried and prayed. Woke up. You could say I was in foster care at that time because I was living with some persons from church, and I woke them up and praying with me. I went to church the Sunday and I gave my testimony. I spoke to the pastor and, they prayed. When I got married, the pain intensified over the years.
Yeah.
And when I got married, it got worse. To the point where once I'm on my cycle, I can't be at work sometimes, or I'm not able to walk, or it makes sense to just stay in the bathroom. It doesn't make sense to get up and even try to change a sanitary napkin. It was really bad. Um, and then I think it was about 2 years later. Oh, because of the complications that I've had over the years, before I even got married, I remember going to the doctor one time, and the doctor looked at me and looked at Sean, because at this time I think they found that I had fibroids and ovarian cysts and hormone imbalances and some other stuff was happening. And the doctor looked at me. We weren't even engaged, we were just dating. And so, you can't have Pitney, right? He was just so blunt and rude.
Wow.
So blunt and rude. You can't have Pitney, right? It not ever happen to you, so just forget about that. And I remember I looked at Sean, but he wasn't fazed by the doctor's comment, but I was devastated. Remember now, as women, we are born nurturers. We know that we are the carriers of children. We know that Pitney can only come if we carry them, right? Naturally. And so I was devastated. And I remember saying to Sean, at the time he was my significant other, I remember saying to him, I can understand if you don't want to pursue this. I can understand if you want to end this now, because I would not be able to give you children. And I know that this is something you want. And his response blew me away. He said, listen, I'm not fazed by what the doctor had to say. I've already had my conversation with God years ago, and so I am not concerned. When the time comes for us to even try, it just wouldn't happen. And again, my situation got worse in terms of my cycle. I had to do a diagnostic lap, and we found out that I had endometriosis. Wow. So this is now endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts, hormone imbalance, and the eggs don't release when they're supposed to be released. So I would say that, for a period of time, I experienced infertility. I did. Thinking about it, I really did. Everything that said no to a child, to me being able to bring a child forth, it was not working for me. Listen.
That's actually a big point, because some persons think that infertility is only something that, pops up from, in the point I'm trying to make is, in my case, I had 2 children initially. And then after that was when
experienced infertility.
And I experienced infertility for years. Now, persons think that infertility, or some people call it barrenness, I hate that term, but some persons call it barrenness, and they think that it only happens to persons who have never had children.
No, that's not. I don't believe that's the case. I used to think that, but no, not anymore. Because even though I have 2 children now, I experienced infertility. I did. I really did.
And it means, therefore, that infertility is something that can happen before you have kids or after you
or after. That is correct. That is correct. So I was infertile for quite some time. Normally when you get married, they encourage you to take contraception, the pill, because, you don't want to have a child right away and all. And I was on that for about 2 to 3 years, I believe. And that also added to the whole process of even having a child. It made it a little bit harder for me. But we knew something else was off. We knew something wasn't right based on the pain I was feeling, based on how many blood I was losing. We knew something wasn't right. And so my doctor suggested that I go ahead and get the diagnostic lab. It's a minor operation, where they put a camera in your navel. There's a little cut under there, and a flashlight and all these things down your throat. And they searched for a very long time, they said, and just as they were about to give up and stop, they found the endometriosis tissue right behind my uterus, which was at the back. That's where I would feel most of my pain, and my belly button, most of my pain. And so I didn't even know what endometriosis was. I did not know what it was.
Of course, nobody talks about it.
No. I knew what fibroids and ovarian cyst was, but not not endometriosis. And so when they explained it to me, it took a while to understand it. That I had a disease, and it caused extra bleeding or additional bleeding on the inside outside of me having a period, and it acts up only when I'm on my cycle. So that made me understand why I was in so much pain. And for endometriosis, it causes severe pain in the pelvis, and it makes it harder for anyone to get pregnant.
Right.
You know, it starts at a person's first menstrual period. So we're thinking about from I was at 10. From I was 10 years old, I'd been struggling with this disease and didn't know what it was. But in the midst of all of that, because at first when the doctor said that I wouldn't be able to have a child, and I believed them at first, but my husband being so optimistic and being so hopeful, I kind of pulled on his faith, and my faith increased and grew because of that. And then I ended up with a doctor who was a believer and who believed that I would have had children. And listen, my confidence went through the roof. I have a doctor who believes I can have children. Then listen, why am I not even believing for myself? So that changed my whole perspective of the possibility of even becoming a mother. Because I really believe that it was out the door for me. Yeah, so on the journey to try to get to conceive, no, that was something else. We tried and we tried some more, and then it wouldn't happen. And then I had to be on treatment for 6 months. So we're talking about getting the Leucrin shot in order to freeze the tissue, the endometriosis tissue, so that I don't have a period. It was just a whole lot of scientific stuff that had to be done for my body to kind of get back in the frame of preparing for pregnancy and just to regularize, because from the medication, it was, let me tell you what was more intensive. The pocket, that one injection each month. We're talking about 9 years ago. That one injection each month was $25,000.
Wow.
I mean, 25,000 is a lot of money right now, But check back 9 years ago, 25,000. And then I had to come off the injection, and then I have to wait a month or two for it to leave my system, and then I have to take the pill, and then I have to, everything was clockwise, and it didn't work the first time, and I was disappointed. I have a case in my bathroom right now with a bunch of negative pregnancy tests. I say I would never throw it away because it's my testimony. And I was able to reveal this to somebody recently, and it was just such a blessing for them to see that they're not alone. I believe that as women, we need to talk about this more because it's too taboo. And there are a lot of women who are suffering because they think that they are alone. When I had before, I'm not going to jump the gun. When I was going through that part of it, it was rough. It was rough. I didn't feel like anybody understood how big of a deal it was for me to have a child, and I couldn't. I was like, God, the one thing I was made to do, one of the things I made to do to give my husband, I'm not able to. I said, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. I said, Sean, let us open up a baby fund account. And that was...
Before you go there, I want you to zone in on, Sean isn't with us today, but if it was so taboo for us as women, can you imagine what it was like for him as a man?
Oh my
I
goodness.
don't think there would have been anybody for him to talk to.
No. And I think at one point he was just confused, because he was like, but, he didn't really say it, but the look on his face and some of the questions that he would have asked, he was like, shouldn't this just happen naturally?
Yeah, you would think.
Like, why? Yeah. I think he was a little puzzled as to what was happening. Why all these complications? And he didn't talk. I don't think he spoke to anyone about it. I think he was just trying to
in the midst of all of that, he was also trying to remain strong for you.
Exactly. He was more focused on being a great husband and being really, really supportive in the midst of all of that. Because It was rough. It was hard, man. It was hard. And then every now and then the dream that that I had when I was 15, 16 years old would come back, and I was like, is this it? Did he touch my reproductive system and make something happen where I'm not able to? So constant prayer about that as well, because we know that life is spiritual.
Yes.
And so I couldn't just look at the natural stuff and think that, oh, it's just because of the end. It's just because I had to go way back, cut off generational curses. Oh yes, me no know. My mommy has 6 children, so me I says, what wrong with me? Mommy take all of my picnic them. But I had to go way back, man, understanding the power behind, and what is in the spiritual realm, and knowing that life is spiritual. I had to go all the way back. And yeah, man, I had to pray against generational curses. As I was saying, I thought my mommy has 6 children, so why am I struggling to have one? Did she get all of them? What's happening here? But I had to really, really understand and look at the fact that life is spiritual. Life is spiritual. And so we tried and we tried and we tried, and the box of negative, I started throwing away my sticks one, and then I said, no, I'm not throwing any more away. I need to keep this. I need this as a reminder. I need to tell my children the story. I need to tell other women my story. This was first struggling with infertility. And I remembered after doing the procedure and doing what the doctor's telling me to do and how to do and when to do and the medication and when to get intimate with my husband and the whole works. I remember one time I decided to go check now. No, another negative stick. I said, I am done. I said, I remember my brother came down and he was here. And I was like, what happened? And I told him, and he was like, Sash, I really believe that the Lord is preparing you for motherhood. I really believe he is preparing you. Karen, I went into the bathroom to take something out of the same spot where I left the stick. And that's when I saw the second line. For the very first time in my life, that was around May, I can't forget it. That was around May 28th or 29th, the 28th or 29th of May, 2016. 2016. And listen, that was about 9 p.m. and we broke out into worship until 1 a.m. We had no words. So the song that Travis Green did, you made a way when our backs were against the wall. Yes, that song there. My fitness song, that song. You see when him read the verse, when him say, oh, you move mountains, you cause walls to fall. With your power, you perform miracle, and there is nothing that's impossible. And I'm standing here only because you made. Listen, I call my first child my miracle baby. When everything said no to children, when my body was not functioning, when my eggs weren't being released, when the endometriosis kind of like wanted to take over, it was a lot, but I conceived. And as I said, we broke out into worship, me, my husband, and my brother. I remember I was laying prostrate before the Lord, just lay flat on my stomach. I said, God, you're not going to make nothing happen to myself. I have to bow down and worship. And I felt like I was actually touching the feet of Jesus. I mean, it was such a tangible experience for me. And I worship until 1 a.m. By the time, and I treasured my pregnancy. I mean, I didn't share with a lot of people because I understand, you wait until you pass a certain trimester. But my prayer warriors and my prayer mothers, they were in my corner because they knew of my journey. Karen, by the time I reached 14 weeks, I was in pain. I went to the hospital, and after the doctors assessed me, I started to bleed. I said, what does this mean? And I'm telling you, these doctors, they need to not just be trained in how to look and, diagnose people, but they need to have compassion. Oh my goodness, not because you've seen these cases 50 million times means that these patients are going through it the same amount of times. Oh my God. It is so sad. It is so sad. It is too sad. When I said, what does this mean? That's the first time, Mom, I'm not sure what to experience. I know that it would have probably considered high risk because of the amount of things that was going on in my body. I said, I said, why am I bleeding? Yeah, this pregnancy is threatened for miscarriage. She just casually wrote up her notes and me devastated. Mr. Bob, I said, God, what is this? You gave me a miracle. And she just walked out of the room and I started to cry to Shana. And I remember calling my sister and she said, God, not give good gift and take it well like that. She said, you hold on to what you believe. And I started to pray. I said, God, you're not going to give me this. You're not going to make me go through this. I said, God, remember you want to give me a test. Remember, I need a testimony. I need a testimony. And when we went to go and I started praying and Sean was standing on the green with me and he started praying and covering me and we always have a buckler of olive oil, because we say, listen now, I dare not forget Bible, we're not recommit this child to God. I will not go wait until he's born before we do that. And we're there, and when we went to go to do the ultrasound, they found out that my fibroids now started to grow with the baby. So the fibroids, it's almost like it was getting bigger than the fetus at the time. And yeah, but you see, you know what I saw when I looked at the monitor when we went to do the ultrasound? Man, the baby was kicking the fibroid like it was a ball, just like kick it, just like kick. The baby, when them say threatened for the, with the dead, listen up, fighting back. And I say, yeah, man. I say, yeah. I said, all right, Holy Spirit, you're telling me what I need to do now. You're showing me what needs to be done, because clearly this is not no regular child that you have given and blessed us with. And so we need to be beckoning and to be fighting and ensure that we are constantly covering this child. You know, I knew I was going to have a son before I did the ultrasound. I remember being in the room and I was saying, Holy Spirit, I wonder if I should pray about the sex of the child. And the Lord said to me, I'm giving you a gift. I said, yeah, but I want to know what kind of sex it is. I'm giving you a gift. I said, yeah, God, I know I'm grateful, but I want to know if it's a boy or a girl. And he said, Jonathan, gift from God. I am giving you a gift. Wow. And that's how we knew we were going to have, or first I was going to be Jonathan. Complications came with that, bed rest in the hospital, hypertension, all sort of manner of evil. All things happen. But God, I was induced, but God. And when I heard the first cry, the first song I started singing in their hospital was, there's a miracle in this room with my name on it. I'm talking to you and I'm singing this song and I'm in tears because I'm going all the way back to January 18, 2017. 2017 at 6:28 a.m. when my miracle came. The child that they said I would never have. The child they said that I would never have. But in that same year, I went through postpartum depression, something again that we don't talk about as much as we need to as women. And so a lot of us suffer in silence, suffer in depression with nobody to talk to because we feel like we need to have it together. We are the mothers and we are the ones that went and have the child and we suffer. Yeah. We suffer. I suffered for 11 months. Yeah, I suffered for 11 months. I did not even know what postpartum depression was. We don't talk about postpartum depression a lot. And so a lot of us as women, we suffer. You know what happened? I just came on bawling. And I said, no, Sean, I think something is wrong. And that's when he reached out to one of my spiritual mom. And she came immediately. She knew what it was. I did not have a clue. Nobody spoke to me about postpartum depression. And then Jonathan had so many different things. He had food aversion, wasn't eating. Then he had terrible eczema, felt like he looked like he was burnt. It was just a lot that was happening. A lot. And I suffered through that. I didn't want anybody to know that I was dealing with these things.
People don't tell you too is that postpartum depression is not just because you're overwhelmed or sad. Sometimes it's an emotional
Yeah.
imbalance that causes
Imbalance.
because you
Yes.
probably were exposed to so many hormones prior to conceiving and
Yeah.
hormones after you conceive during the pregnancy
Exactly.
and then
Exactly.
have the baby, the hormones just drop again. So it's the up and down and the fluctuating and all that. It really
Exactly.
on our bodies,
Exactly.
and that
Oh God.
translates into our mental ability to cope.
Trust me. It was a lot. I wish this all of what you're saying now. I wish I knew all of this then. I know it now. But I did not know. I didn't know, and nobody ever talked to me about. And I knew so many persons that had kids and pregnant, and not even my mom. Nobody did.
See, there's a
Nobody
stigma
did.
attached to it.
Oh my goodness. I don't know where this feeling of shamefulness comes from, but I felt ashamed. As you said, I felt embarrassed. You mentioned about not every woman was able to breastfeed. I didn't have, I didn't, I didn't have enough nipples. And so I wasn't able to feed him. So we were in the hospital for days and I was trying. Oh God, and the nurses were pulling and I was pushing. Oh my goodness. It was horrible. And he would not eat. He wouldn't eat until he started dropping the weight. And then they were concerned and the jaundice started, I believe my thing started from day 2 or the first day the first day. A few hours after I gave birth, the baby wouldn't eat. And then when I came home, we're still trying to make nipples so we can feed the baby. It was rough. It was rough. And then the other complications that came with that. So for 1 year, I struggled with that. And then the moment I came out of depression, I conceived again. So that came as a shocker because I thought that I would have to go back through the whole procedure. Doing the operation. Why wasn't even trying? Doing the operation, going back on the medication, just the whole procedure all over again. Because remember, pregnancy did not come easy for us. So I was not depressed. But God, I'm a planner. I like to sort out my thing. Just like I had the baby funding account. I tell you that Sean and I, we said we're going to have the baby fund, and we did that. We did that. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. When we did that, persons laughed at us, Why would you waste money and do that and you can't have kids? But that was where my step of faith, my faith started with my pregnancy journey. And every month we would contribute a certain amount of money to this particular account, and we call it the baby funding account. And so
the insensitivity is just mind blowing.
Oh Lord.
To this day, it shocks me.
It never ends. Yeah. I always say if you don't know what to say, just don't say anything. Smile and nod.
Yeah.
Uncle Al always said that. Smile and nod. Smile and nod. You don't have to comment. And so, so I was going back to that conversation with God and I said, Lord, I'm a planner. I like to, because we're not rich like that, we want to be able to, take care of the pit them and all of these things. Because before, when we started talking about baby and wanting to try, I had resigned from the airport. I knew I wanted to be home to raise our children. And so we were putting things in place to accommodate that. Okay. And so when the second pregnancy came, I was like, God, what is this? What's this? And how I took that pregnancy test, Jonathan just kept hugging on my tummy, loving on my tummy, kissing her. I said, what's happening here? Because I didn't feel any different. I didn't feel anything. I was like, no, Mom, I feel like I need to go and take a test because you are too lovey-dovey and so intimate all of a sudden. And it's not necessarily with me. It's with my tummy. And when I did the test, I got a positive, straight positive. I was like, Lord Jesus, I thought you were going to give me time. I thought, I was going to have to do all of this. And so I was happy. Because again, with my first experience, I was happy. The same thing I got with Jonathan. I heard, Naomi, I'm giving you, what did I heard? A faith child. That's so I thought I heard. I'm giving you a faith child. Naomi Faith Abigail Pike. So I knew it was a girl because of that connection that I have with God and the conversations that we would have as it relates to when I'm pregnant and the sex that we would have. On our anniversary, I lost that child. Before my my 4th year wedding anniversary, the day before, I got up 2 a.m. the 7th of February, and I was in a lot of pain, and it lasted for probably like a good 10-15 minutes, and then it stopped. And then Sean left for work, and I was home the whole day, and I was really concerned about it. And then the pain came back a little, and then it stopped. So by the time we got home, we called the doctor, and she said, "Go to the hospital." I wasn't thinking, and and I never thought that I was bigger than miscarriage. Mind you, where I used to work, I had 2 friends who had gone through. One went through a miscarriage and one lost a baby, and I was devastated. They had to send me along with the mothers for counseling because, boy, it did heavy upon me. No, man, I feel your pain, man. I feel you, and so when you go through me, I go through too, and so it really affected me. Never ever thought that it would have happened to me. And it's not because I am better than a miscarriage. I just never thought about it. And so when we went to the hospital, that never crossed my mind. I was okay now, and I planned for my anniversary the next day, and we did all sorts of tests, drew blood, did some check and everything. And I was okay. And
Were you bleeding or spotting, or it was just
none of that? It was just the pain on and off. No bleeding, no spotting, nothing else. It wasn't until 12:15. I remember that 12:15, February 8, 2018. 12:15 when they took me to go into the ultrasound. For me, I'm very keen. I'm very, very, very aware and, alert when it comes on to my pregnancies. And so I would normally look at the monitor. I listen for a heartbeat, or I look at the monitor for movement or the flickering of the heart. I kept looking and I wasn't seeing anything. And I realized the doctor was turning away the monitor from me, and I became real uneasy after that. I saw she was there for a very long time, and then she left the room. And I said, "Sean, did you see anything on the monitor?" Why, my husband, when him tired, him not so faithful in him, I will shut down. He said, he was like, "Ma, my left eye did not burn me." Well, it's interesting that I'm able to talk about my story now and laugh, real healing, we're talking about real healing here. I said, "Please, next time, I'm asking you. I know you're tired, but I just asked him to." And he was tired because he went to work, came home from the airport, then had to take me back to the hospital, and we were there for the entire time. So he was really exhausted. And I seen the doctor come in, so I said, "What is now?" When I saw the doctor come in, I just lift my head up to the heavens and I said, "God, no." Those are my exact words. I said, "God, no." Jonathan had just turned 1 year old. So he was 1 and a few weeks, 1 and a week old or something like that. I said, "God, no." And the doctor, she look and she tell me, turn on my side, and I turn on every side I could think of. I turn. When I heard she said, "Mrs. Pike," unfortunately, those words will never leave my memory. "Mrs. Pike, unfortunately, we are not hearing a heartbeat." Karen, I lost all control of my body. I started to scream. I think the entire hospital, and I was by UE, and I believe the entire hospital could hear me. I started vomiting. I peed on myself. I had no control. I felt like I was having a horrible dream, and I just wanted it to be over. And when they turned the monitor, I remember, and every time I think about Naomi, I think about this lifeless body on the monitor that I saw that day. The first time, my husband is not an emotional one. And so that day was the first time or the second time, no, the first time I ever hear my husband bawl. I'm saying, no, God, no, I'm saying, no, God. And he came over my stomach and he said, baby girl, just move, just move. This is daddy. Oh my God, I'm talking to you and I'm remembering every single emotion. I'm actually feeling all those emotions at that time. He said, baby girl, it's daddy. Just move, just move. This is daddy's voice. You would normally hear me. Just move, just move. It's okay. I'm here. And he was just bawling.
I can
That's
totally
not my
relate.
husband.
It's just bringing me back to when I had my first miscarriage, and I was in total denial. Same thing happened. They told me the same words, unfortunately.
Yeah. Mm.
I hate that word, but
I hate it.
yeah, and I saw the lifeless body of the
Funny.
baby on the monitor as well. Because I'm like you, I'm in tuned with everything medical. And I could pick
Yeah.
up immediately, and I was in denial. I literally said to them, "No, she is going to be resurrected." Like
Mm.
I literally kept saying, "The baby's gonna be resurrected. I'm not coming off this table. I am getting a miracle right
Mm.
now." I started laying hands
My
on my
God.
belly and commanding the baby to come back to life. Like it was a whole
My
scene,
God.
a whole scene.
Trust me. You sound like me. You sounded like, because after man, that sounded like my story. And you see, this just goes to show the importance of sharing,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of sharing our story, the sharing so that others can hear it too. When you hear the similarities and you realize, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
she went through that. Someone else went through that. That was me. Yeah, I did that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um. After I was hysterical, I said no. I said no. I said, God, she can't. How can she be a fake child and be dead? I said, didn't you promise me? I said, how can she be a promised child and be dead? I said, God, what are you doing? And I said, no, I need another opinion. I need to go somewhere else.
I did the same thing. Did the
I
same
need to
thing.
go
Like for
somewhere else.
24 hours, I could not accept it. I to the point where
Yeah.
I checked myself out of the hospital, went home because I knew that the baby was coming back alive. I say I need another
Mm,
doctor. I need somebody else to check
yes,
because I expect this baby to be resurrected.
man, man. And Karen, God could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, when I look at my life and back then, I was like, God, why didn't you? You had that power. You could
Mm-hmm.
have done it. When I look at my situation, I was like, okay, I see why you didn't. I was the example. I was the test. So I can now give a testimony. I had to go through and experience this so that I can pull and help to pull other women that are not able to pull themselves out or even able to stand. And so when I look back, I have no regrets. I mean, a lot of times I think about Naomi. I still desire a daughter. I really do. But I said, okay, God, if you want to use me, and the interesting thing is, it's January of that same year of 2018. I said to the Lord, I said, God, I'm always asking for things. I always have new things on my list that I want for the new year. I said, God, for this year, what can I do for you? Mighty God.
Wow.
I remember asking the Holy Spirit. I said, what can I do for you this year? How can
Wow.
I avail myself to you this year? So when them finished with me at the hospital, and that took a while for them to be finished. They sent me back around at A&E to wait with the dead baby inside of me. Then they tried to assess again. Then they sent me home with the dead baby inside of me.
Wow.
And I came home and I was in the bathroom and I was just crying and my husband was bawling. At this time I'm just a ball, never ever see Sean. At one time I was concerned a little bit because I've never ever seen my husband like that. And then we had to go back to the hospital to their pharmacy to get the pill. to induce me. Then I had to go back home with the dead baby. And then the appointment was the following day to remove the baby. It was horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, I can just
You're
imagine.
you're up and down with a baby that is dead inside of you. My stomach bulging out. I can see that I'm obviously pregnant. I was no longer feeling the flutters, no longer feeling the movement. I remember I went into the bathroom, Karen, and I stood there. I couldn't even bathe myself. I just stood there with the water pouring on me. And the song the Holy Spirit gave me, hey, God amazing, Even in the state of hurting, man. The song that he gave me was, your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. And I just there singing the song over and over and over. Me, I'm balling up. I feel like I'm mad with God. I'm a vex with the world. I'm a vex with my husband. And I don't know why I vex with Sean. I'm mad at myself. I'm wondering, what did I do? How could I have been this careless? Mind you, I did nothing wrong. The same way I protected my first pregnancy, I did the very same with my second pregnancy. But I couldn't shake it. And by the next day, it was my anniversary. I could just look at my husband and just say, happy anniversary. We never celebrated that. We
Couldn't have.
never celebrated. Couldn't have. They
But
took me to do the.
I think at this point we are gonna have to pause this discussion because we are out of
Out of
time.
time.
But we definitely are going
Oh,
to hear
yes.
how this story ends. We have to hear the
We
triumph
have
at
to.
the end of this story. But I am so glad that you were able to share with us today,
It's a
so that
pleasure.
yeah, because of people, women out there, they need to know. They need to know that they're not alone. They need to understand that, somebody else went through what I went through, as you mentioned before. It's very
Yes.
important for us to know that there are connections in this world with people who we might not even know, but through shared
Mm,
experiences, we are able to say, okay, you know humans, the human nature, people, we connect with each other on a different level. So at
definitely.
this point, we're going to break the discussion and we will be back next week to
Don't miss
talk
it.
about the end, the end of, sorry, the end of this story. So thank you again, Sash. I really,
You
really
are
enjoyed
welcome.
our conversation today and I look forward to continuing this discussion.
Definitely. We'll see you next week.
Gave me courage to hope again, to believe again in your love that's covering me. I will be brave, I will be strong, I have courage to go on. I will hope, I will believe in your love. I will be brave, I will be strong, I have courage to go on. I will hope, I will believe in your love. I will be brave, I will be strong, I have courage to go on. I will hope, I will believe in your love, in your love, in your love. Thank you, Jesus. It's covering me.